Hello and welcome to the Common Colt Podcast. I'm Josh Hudgens, and with me is my co-host Dan Hertzler. If you've never heard of the Common Colt Podcast before, we're just a Colts podcast done by Common Colts fans, and our job is to provide analysis and hopefully not be completely biased and one-sided for the Colts.
Doing so far so good. Last week watching a game and pulling your hair out and trying to get these stupid players to play like they're capable of, and then finally at the end, and then the kicker we'll talk about. So it was an exciting first week, and as we're talking here, we're moving on to Jacksonville, which
Yes.
I think you deemed already as it's a must-win game.
Yes.
But as we know, Jacksonville is kind of like that house of horrors for the Colts. I think it's been last four straight, eight of last nine. It's been pretty bad.
In Jacksonville. They've lost 8 of their last 9 in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. This isn't the Chiefs. This is the Jaguars.
And everyone knows how last season ended. And then, until we kind of get past that the tie really didn't help one bit getting past that. We're right back in it. And the first few minutes of this game is just, I think, going to be a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I even saw, I don't know if you saw the point spread, it's only 3.5, which to me is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
I try not to tell people to bet the farm because I don't want them to lose the farm, but man, the Colts, this seems like one of those bets where like you can't go wrong, but man, I don't know. What's your thoughts on this game coming up?
I don't know, man. It is wild that they're only 3.5 point favorites, but when you tie the Texans and you haven't you haven't won in Jacksonville in 4 years, that's what happens. Something I was going through old stats, and I noticed back in 2020, Jacksonville went 1-15. Their only win in 2020 was against the Colts, Week 1. Phillip Rivers, that was his debut as a Colts quarterback. COVID year, all that, but still, I mean, this has got to end this year. I think the Colts are the favorite to win this game, obviously, and I think they will win this game. And I've seen Frank Reich kind of deflect a few questions when they ask, "Hey, are you nervous, or is the team extra motivated?" Motivated was the word they used to win this game, and a lot of coach talk. But he did say, "Hey, some guys weren't on the roster last year, and some guys it might matter a little bit more too." So you got to think the Jonathan Taylors of the world, Michael Pittmans of the world, guys who are on that roster who watched this team miss the playoffs in Jacksonville last season. This game has to mean a lot for those guys, right?
Yeah, we undersell, I think, professional athletes and the emotional part of it. All the new analytics, looking at all the numbers, looking at all the data, looking at, when you should go for it, when you should punt, how many times. I mean, you can look at numbers all day long, but the reality is you're dealing with humans who have emotions. And I know you hear NFL players, former players saying, well, if you need to get motivated for this game, you don't understand the business. Tell me something else. There's still something about this game that the Colts are going down there, especially as you said, okay, maybe Matt Ryan doesn't quite understand it. He wasn't on there, but the guys that were on the team last year, they're going to be talking about it. The reporters are asking the questions. It's just all in their head. So to me, and we'll talk about the keys at the end, but again, the first quarter of this game, man, I really, especially the way just the Texans game went, I think is going to be huge when it comes to how this game plays out and kind of beating those ghosts.
The weird thing is the Colts have won their last 7 home games against the Jaguars. So Indianapolis has obviously been a trouble for Jacksonville to travel to, and Jacksonville just hasn't had a great team historically, really. Right. What do you think makes Jacksonville so tough for the Colts to win in? Again, 8 of the last 9 losses. Is it just a kind of a fluke, luck of the draw thing, or what?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Jacksonville. I mean, last year wasn't the case, but a lot of times are they playing early in the year? Because you see a lot of times the teams that go down into Florida early in the year, you got the humidity. Look for cramping to take place this game. If I didn't check what the forecast would be, but a lot of times it's a little hotter down there, and so that can be a factor with it too. Again, some of these things we just don't realize and don't know. and players get real superstitious about what locker rooms and turf and atmosphere and where they stay, and I don't think you can probably pinpoint anything other than I would say that if the humidity's there, but it's that psychological edge of what comes on during a game, and there's something there because you can't lose 8 of the last 9 or 7 of the last 8, whatever it is, and say it's just nothing.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is football is a game of matchups, and division games are always a coin flip, in my opinion. Just these guys know each other. They play each other twice a year. They just know each other. So roster-wise, the Jaguars, I think they have a maybe not a great NFL roster. They have some potential, which you know how I feel about potential. It just means you haven't done it yet, but they have potential. But maybe they just match up well against the Colts, and it is kind of what it is. I mean, I remember the year Andrew Luck's last season, they were on this big run, and even Luck in his last game in Jacksonville lost to the Jaguars. So it's not just a quarterback problem either. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but if you think about it too, how many different coaches now have the Jags had? How many different roster turnovers? Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to really, I think, kind of pinpoint it towards something. If this was the same coach, the same players, yeah, I'm with you there. It's just like you said, it's a divisional game. It's down in Jacksonville. I mean, we'll see. And honestly, it's as this week has been going on, yeah, you're getting over the Texas game, the tie, and all that stuff. But now the injuries are creeping up, and it's almost like, okay, is this Jacksonville week starting already? Because some of these injuries, Pittman for one, I don't remember reading or seeing anything coming off the game where he was saying anything, and then all of a sudden he shows up on the injury report and then doesn't practice today. It's not looking good. The whole list of them's there. You got Buckner, you got Leonard is practicing, so that's good news. What's your thoughts as you look at the? We talked about this team not being deep and injuries couldn't be a factor. Are you getting worried about these injuries?
I'm not super worried. I think that with injuries, it's interesting because it's just so happens to be like a lot of star players on the Colts, like DeForest Buckner, no practice so far this week as of Thursday. Pierce concussion protocol. Kenny Moore limited to did not practice. Pittman limited to did not practice, and Shaquille Leonard, full. I wonder though, it's interesting with Kenny Moore and Pittman. Both going from limited to did not practice. It could be strategic planning by the Colts. I think Friday is going to be very telling for both of those players. And I'm kind of drawing a circle around DeForest Buckner right now. He's kind of been a constant for the Colts in that defensive line. And I think if you go 3 did not practices this week, we might not see DeForest Buckner out there. And that guy is a beast. So that's going to be a big loss for the Colts, even if they add Shaquille Leonard back to the mix.
Are you more concerned about him because he's the better player, or are you more concerned about your top 2 receivers potentially not being there, being the fact that the receiving core is not quite as deep?
That's a great question. I think that I'd be more concerned about DeForest Buckner being out because the drop off from Pittman to whoever, whether it's Paris Campbell or Alec Pierce or whoever, that is a substantial drop off. But losing Alec Pierce, I feel like you're not losing that much when you compare him to somebody like a Paris Campbell or Strong or an Ashton Doolin. Pierce hasn't proved anything other than he could drop it in the end zone right now for the Colts. I mean, that's all he's proved for us. The Pittman loss would be big, but what we've seen with Matt Ryan against Houston, he can spread that ball around and he can find guys. I know that Trevor Lawrence is a second-year quarterback, and just having that guy in your face, like DeForest Buckner, that does something, and it's not good.
Yeah. I took a look at the Jags and Washington Commanders game, and Carson Wentz was throwing the ball all over the place.
No.
Kind of a typical Wentz kind of game. There was 2 interceptions, but then he goes out and throws 4 touchdowns over 350. Kind of threw it all over the place. So I don't think that Jacksonville's secondary is what they're is anything to write home about. I think the Colts can have some advantages there. Their first round, number one pick overall, Walker, had a really big game for a rookie, had a sack, had an interception. He seems to potentially be the real deal. So, keep an eye out for him as far as causing some trouble. But this game to me is set up exactly like the Texans game. You got a young QB, you've got a young roster, you got a new head coach putting in his stamp on the team. Everything about this game should be, as we thought going into the Texans game, advantage Colts. Other than these injuries and it being in Jacksonville, those are the things that are really concerning here.
And I'll say kind of my keys to this game, when I think about this matchup, and I said it last week, you gotta start fast in games like this against teams that you're favored against, teams you should beat. The last thing you want to do is get into halftime and that be a close game, or you be losing. God forbid you're losing that game, because all that does is that puts pressure on you, and that gives that team confidence. Like, hold on, wait a minute, we're in this game. We got a chance, and we did that against Houston, and we started off slow, and that leads me to my second key, which is the play calling in the first half has got to improve. Whether it's situationally, fourth down, do you kick it? Do you go for it? What play do you call on that fourth down? And let's not be super obvious with the running game. We saw it late against Houston when the Colts did spread it out, and Ryan was forced to throw it. Then as the game got close later on, it opened up running lanes because the defense isn't just focused in on the run game. So being diverse in your play calling, spreading the ball around, I think is better than just pounding the rock up the middle for 4-yard chunks. And obviously Trevor Lawrence looked like the first overall pick against the Colts last time they played, and he didn't really look like the first overall pick much last season. So I think that they got to make him uncomfortable. I think that whether it's DeForest Buckner, whether he's in or out, Kwity Paye is going to have to step up and make some plays for the Colts.
Yeah, and if you look again at the game last week, the defense played pretty well. I mean, they didn't shut them down like we would have hoped, but they didn't, they weren't gashed on the run game. The Texans really couldn't do much on the ground. They hit the tight ends a few times. It was really more about the offense last week. So to your point, they got to come and do the exact same thing. They got to make the Jaguars move the ball and prove that they can do it. So, my top three keys, I'm going right to Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan needs to come out like he did in the fourth quarter, and like you said, spread the ball around. Maybe he got some liberty in the audibles. Maybe
that was Matty Ice. That's the Matty Ice we had hoped we were going to see.
Yeah. That's what you spend the money for. That's why you get the veteran. That's what they need. They're also, again, we've talked about some of these unsung heroes. Well, with more injuries taking place now, other guys got to step up. So you lose your top, pass catcher maybe in Pittman. Who's going to step up? Is it going to be Campbell? Is it going to be, someone else? The two young tight ends, are they going to get involved in the pass game? So, it can't just be Jonathan Taylor. It can't be Hines. It just can't be check downs and all those things. They got to take some shots. So I'm putting my number one key right there on Matt Ryan. Number two on injuries and who's going to step in and are we going to have the unsung hero step forward? And then last thing I'm just going to say is, and we touched a little bit, and we saw it in the fourth quarter, but just leadership.
Yeah.
So not just from the head coach, which is going to be important. Coach has got to get them prepared. Coach, the first 15 plays, most NFL teams are scripting. If I'm scripting those first 15 plays for the Colts, I'm thinking about a play action, something deep. I'm thinking about just giving the Jaguars something to think about. Even if they don't connect on it, don't let the Jaguars get comfortable, pulling their defense up, trying to stop Taylor. Get something over the top. Try a one-on-one kind of home run jump ball or something. But then leadership from the players. Matt Ryan, your defense. If Leonard is able to play, he's got to be a leader there. So someone in a leadership position's got to step up into this game and just say enough is enough.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Obviously, to me, there's the Colts had scapegoats the Colts had a scapegoat in Carson Wentz last season with his leadership. That was a big deal. You can't use that excuse this year offensively. You got Jonathan Taylor, who's established, and Matt Ryan, who's very established. Defensively, you've got, not only do you have Leonard, who, whether he's playing or not, he should be able to provide some leadership. You added Gilmore to the fold, one of the best cornerbacks, in the league, and you have Buckner. So leadership needs to step up. I agree 100%. For me, when I look at this game and I look at who's going to make the big plays for the Colts and help them win this game, my eyes are really on Kwity Paye. This guy, second-year guy now, he had 2 sacks against Houston late, and he came in, got those sacks, and it really put him in a position to win the game. Whether Buckner's in or out, I think Kwity Paye has a chance to unleash some havoc on Trevor Lawrence, and maybe we get strip sack like Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis did back in the day.
Yeah, that's a good one, and coming off of week one, a really strong performance. Before I share my player of the game, though, we got to talk about the big kind of transaction that took place. Your boy is gone. I mean, how you feeling about that?
I feel great. I feel great. I'm gonna go on a tangent for a second here, and Blankenship. I always feel bad when guys get cut, to tell you the truth, because they get cut and there's people parading it. You just lost your job and you go on Twitter and everybody's happy. It's awful. But the guy has a unique, kind of quirky, likable personality. He's got glasses and he builds Legos and he's kind of he's a marketing genius because of it. But as an NFL kicker, the guy is not clutch. He doesn't have a big time leg, and you need that. So whether or not it was justified in cutting him after the first game of the season, I don't know. But I think long term, this had to have been done anyway. And I think the Colts knew that. The guy also put 2 kickoffs out of bounds. So whether they're going to do it now or week 6, I think Chris Ballard said, hey, let's rip the Band-Aid and let's see what happens with this kicker situation. And that's what they did.
Yeah, well, we talked about it, even preseason, at the end of the preseason, and Chris Ballard, the GM and management, was one of the topics we talked about. To me, it's just kind of mind-boggling that you go all off season, training camp, you bring this guy in, and then 1 week he's done. To me, that was a quick pull that probably they should have tried to address this earlier in the offseason and get someone else. Now, they go on waiver wire, they pick up this kicker. I think he was from the Browns, Chase. He maybe he'll be all right, but when you're picking up the 33rd best or the 34th or 35th best kicker because you didn't plan well or you didn't draft one or you didn't bring in competition enough to push this guy. That's his first field goal attempt is going to be, kind of all eyes and pressure on him, and what happens. And I think it's again, for a team like the Colts that are legitimate division type caliber winners, that's a huge oversight. I think right now I put that as a check mark on the poor job from Colts.
What do you think that move of cutting Blankenship after week one, was that more indicative or obvious of them saying, hey, look, this guy was on a short leash all along? Or was it just a political move? Did they just make this move because, again, somebody had to be a fall guy, and we shouldn't have tied with Houston? You're the fall guy. You're cut.
Yeah, no, I think it was more that they had a short leash with them. But my concern in that is, why? Like, how'd you not know that going into week one? Like, how was that not part of you trying to build the best roster you can possibly have? I don't think it was political because it's only week one. They didn't technically lose the game, even though we act like they did.
They lost.
I don't quite think that was political yet. But to me, it's I put this more on Chris Ballard and the poor management of the roster construction.
Yeah.
That after week one, you're already booting your kicker, and now you're on the street trying to find a kicker. So this might be, and we talked about the Colts are a team that has to have a lot of things go right they can't have errors, and now they've got this kicker, and we'll see. But ultimately, my player of the game, I'm just sticking with Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan is going to win this game for the Colts. I think his leadership, picking apart the young secondary, taking advantage of the young team, and I think what we saw in the fourth quarter last week is what we're going to see more of. Maybe not right off the bat, but we're going to see more of that. And I think at some point the coaching staff is just going to say, hey, look, we got a quarterback here that can lead us and do some things. Let's give him some freedom to do that. So I got my potential player of the game is going to be Matt Ryan.
What's the score going to be?
Oh, so I'm going out on a pretty big limb here. I got 26-10, and I picked 26 because I think this new kicker, I think he's going to kick 4 field goals.
Oh, man.
Everyone's going to throw a parade, and everyone's going to be flying high in Indianapolis.
Wow.
Come Sunday.
Wow. I got the Colts winning 31-24. I think it's going to be a one-score game. I think the Colts are going to lead throughout. I don't think it's ever going to be truly in doubt, but I don't see him running away with it either.
How'd you pick 24? You think the defense is going to let them score, or you think the offense is going to give them some points?
I think that the defense is going to let up some points. I think that I think Trevor Lawrence I think he's a solid quarterback. And what I've seen, even though the defense didn't necessarily play awful against Houston, it was Davis Mills. And I think about that game, especially early, there was a drop on a crossing route. It was a low throw and a drop. Jacksonville has better receivers and a better quarterback in my eyes than Houston. So I'm watching that. I think the Colts have a top 5 defense, but in my eyes, knowing who they played, they didn't seem like a top 5 defense against Houston. So I think they're going to have 24 points, but I think Matty Ice, Jonathan Taylor, Paris Campbell, and whoever else, Ashton Doolin, are going to do what it takes to get the Colts to win.
So if this goes wrong and everything falls apart, and we're checking our blood pressure come Sunday night, who we blaming? Who's going to be the number one guy we blame?
I'm writing Irsay a letter to give Reich a pink slip. I mean, I'm done. I'm done if that happens. I'm overreacting.
You think his hot seat is heating up there?
If they lose to Jacksonville, if their last 3 games are lose to Jacksonville to miss the playoffs, tie the season opener to Houston, and then lose to Jacksonville, Irsay is going to be livid.
Yeah. So I got 2 of them. One, I'm gonna say the trainer right now, because I think the injuries are a huge thing. I think this early in the season, coming here and potentially losing your top 2 receivers, losing Buckner, your best player on defense, that might be enough that keeps this game close, and we'll see what happens. But hey, if I called him the key to win it, and if they don't win it, I got to say Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan might throw a pick 6. He might do something dumb, hold the ball on, fumble. I think he had 4 fumbles last week. I mean, he did fumble. So I think if somehow this goes south, if the ghosts of Jacksonville come out again, I think it's going to be Matt Ryan, and we're going to sit here wondering what the future of the Colts season is.
Yeah, no, that'll be a dark day, and I refuse to think about it for now. Guys, this is the Common Colt Podcast. Again, we're a podcast by Colts fans who try to give some analysis and hopefully not be too biased. And that's all we got for the Jacksonville week. Coming up, the game's on Sunday, and then we typically release an episode that night and give you something to listen to on your ride in the morning on Monday. So that's Dan Hertzler. I'm Josh Hudgens, guys. Thanks for listening to the Common Colt Podcast. Check us out on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, anywhere you can listen to it. We probably got it, guys. Thanks for listening.